Perfect. So let's begin. I have here a set of files. I will show you what these files are. I will show you what we can do individually with these files, and then what we can achieve otherwise. Let me quickly dock the chat so that I'm able to see some questions if they come in. Mostly, since this is a webinar, I'm afraid I will not be able to hear you. I will only be able to speak here, and I can understand if it gets a little boring at times. Please bear with me. So let's begin. I have here a file. Let me zoom in a little bit, increase the view. So I have a file here which gives me a cost type, a product ID, and some cost. All right. So I'm looking at this data. And with this data, what is possible? What's possible in the most basic sense is that I go ahead and create a pivot table. I will create a pivot table. And in this pivot table, I will drag in cost type. And by cost type, I can get the total cost. So I can say, OK, I have a bunch of variety of costs here, and I can see the totals for each cost type. This is something that is possible. I could look at it by product ID, remove cost type, and just view each product ID, what is the total cost. This is what I can do looking at this file in itself. Of course, this is not what I want to use right away, so I will leave this and go back to my base file. I have now a second file. Let me close this one and take the second source. I have a source 2, which gives me a lot of transaction data. It tells me the product ID, on which date it was sold, how many units, what was the sale price, at which store, and I have something called customer rating. Okay, so this is a second piece of data that's available to me. With this, I can try and understand the total sale price by store, the total amount earned by each store, or by each product at each store, and so on and so forth. So there's a certain number of things that I can do without needing to move to another file. Straight away, I can create a new set of pivots. So it's very easy. I do this. I say this is my sale units, and the sum of sale units I can get by product ID. I can say that I want to see this by different stores. So this tells me this is what it is in each. I could calculate a revenue. That's not difficult. I could say, give me a revenue, and the revenue is sale units into sale price. And I pull this down. Let me come back here. And what do I have here? What are my options? Let me see. Okay, so I have here data which I have put together, and I can just right click and say, let's click on refresh. What does it give me? It gives me nothing because that is not really a table. It is just data. But little importance here, I have data source. Instead of F, I will make this G and give me revenue. So I can take revenue here. I remove sale units, and this gives me the revenue by product ID and by store. Okay. All of this I am doing without doing anything additional. This is standard Excel as we all know it. For now, I will remove this column and close this file. I have a third source. This third source gives me information of what is the product name for each of those product IDs. who is the product manager, who is the category manager, and I have some more information here. I don't know what this information is at this moment, so I will leave it be. Now let's get ready to create something completely different. Now there's a business ask here. Given these three parts of data, I have a certain set of questions to be answered. Which product should be promoted since it has the lowest revenue? Which product manager is bringing in the highest margin? Which store needs improvement according to customers? Now I have been told that revenue is a multiple of unit and price. Margin is the difference between total revenue and total costs, and store performance rated by customers between 1 to 5, but it's optional, which means that not every customer gives a rating. So 1 is lowest and 5 is highest. The average of the rating helps us determine the score for each store. All right, so this is what we are looking at. Is this something that you can all relate to? All right, so now I'm going to take this data, and the same data, I'm going to look at it from a different perspective. Let's start by creating a completely new Excel file. So I will call this file as analysis. Okay, let's open this file. And at this point, I am going to go click on data. You see here, get data, get and transform data, queries and connections. Now, most of you will have used sort and filter, data tools, though not all of them necessarily. Forecast as well, perhaps. But let me show you what happens when we do get data. I have certain options under get data where I can say from a file, from a database, from Azure, from a Power Platform, or from a variety of other sources. I can also combine. At this moment, I'm going to say that I want from file and from Excel workbook, and I have here source 1. So I'm selecting and clicking on source 1. So if you see here, it shows me now a pop-up with sheet 1, where yes, that's the only sheet there is. If you have multiple sheets, it will show you every sheet. Now, this sheet 1 shows me cost type, product ID, and cost. I have an option for load, transform data, or cancel. I will click on, so I can either say load, or I can say load to, or transform data. At this point, I'm going with a simple option. I have a single option. I do not have multiple items. Transform data. So in transform data, I have now arrived at this sheet 1. This is what is called the Power Query Editor. So we're going to learn 2 new aspects under in today's webinar under Excel itself. These are 2 separate parts of Excel. One is called the Power Query Editor, which is what we are looking at now, connect to data and to make transformations. What are transformations? We'll see that very shortly. When I connect it to this data, it has automatically created something called a query. Query in Excel terms is really just a table. However, it's not just a table. For our purpose, we will treat it as a table. I will mark this as cost. And I have here a certain number of things that have happened. Automatically, Excel has created the source, which it shows me the source, the path. It shows me that it's a sheet called sheet 1. It shows me that it has promoted the headers, cost type, product ID, and cost. Why promoted headers? Because it was not a table, and therefore Excel had to identify that there is probably a header. And then it has changed the type. Now, this is something which is very different from the way Excel normally works, or the way we think it works. You have here a certain number of data types: decimal number, currency, whole number, percentage, date, time, date. This is how we format a cell normally. However, in Power Query, we format the entire column. So I repeat here, this has automatically taken and assigned the type. It has said cost type is text, which is ABC. Product ID and cost are both 1 to 3, which is an integer. You don't have to worry too much about it because most of this happens automatically. If it does not, you can come in here. If it shows you ABC 1 to 3 together, it means that it does not know how to classify it. And this is how you can do it. I'm sorry that I will not be able to hear you if you ask a question. So if you've raised your hand, I will not be able to see what it is that you want to ask. However, I'm checking chat from time to time. So if you have a question, feel free to put it in chat. I will try and answer. So I have a question on, is it possible to get data from an XML file without losing the data? Example, numeric value with leading zeros, number of digits more than 20. Well, okay. So let me show you this again. Let me start with this. So I have a bunch of questions. I wanted to show you first how I have loaded this. Let me do this again. Do you want to keep your changes? Discard. Okay. So I still have my basic empty file to which I'm connecting another file from Excel workbook. I say source 1. It gives me a single option because there is only one. I select the sheet, and this sheet shows me what data is inside. This is a sampling. It's not all of the data, it's just a sample. I look at it and I say, yes, go ahead and transform data. When I hit transform data, it moves me into a different component of attached to Excel called the Power Query Editor. The Power Query Editor shows me sheet 1, and it has automatically made this data into a table. This mechanism of converting a cost type, product ID, cost to automatically identified, these are integers and this is text, is something that Power Query does really well. So it has taken a number of steps. I have done nothing. All I have done is click on transform, and it has got me a ready table. I don't like the name sheet 1. It means nothing. I can double click here, or I can go here in properties and change the name. I will call this cost for my purposes. I've hit enter, and I have now a new table called cost. All right, so I have here some data which is already available to me. I have noted the question about duplicate values. I will address that in the next step. So cost type, product ID, and cost, I have one data available. I can now decide what I wish to do. I can go ahead and say close and load, and that will take care of it. That will be done. I will have finished with this particular cost. What happens if I close and load? If I close and load, it creates here a new worksheet called cost with this data brought in as a table, and you can see this reference in queries and connections. If I were to close this, I can always go back. Under data, I can click on queries and connections and go back to this. Okay. Now I've pulled in 1. So I have an excellent question here. What is the benefit of this Power Query editor? We can just copy from one Excel file to another. I will tell you why we should do that and what is a mega advantage that comes up. Give me a few moments. I'm going to connect the rest of the data as well. I'm now getting a different data from Excel workbook source 2. I select source 2. I had a question, should I transform or should I just load? I always suggest that you do a transform because with a load, we do not know if Excel has made some tiny errors or was unable to identify what should be marked as what data type. So it's safest to just do a transform data. Now in this scenario, if you see, I have something on top. My table starts a little later. You see this? I have something called transaction data, date. This is an automated export, null, null, null. Product ID, sale date, sale unit, sale price, store, customer rating. I'm going to click on transform data. When I click on transform data, this is what it shows me. I cannot use this because this is not a table. This is not a table. Yes, we require all 3 tables, but we are loading them one by one. I will show you how to combine them in the later step. Now, if you see, I do not need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have here an option within this of saying remove rows. Remove top rows. You see the options, remove top rows, bottom rows. Why bottom rows? Because sometimes you have totals at the bottom, so you do not want the totals. Remove alternate rows. There can be scenarios for that. Remove duplicates. Now, I could click now and remove duplicates, but that would be a bad idea. I will do that in a later file. Because if I click on this, which I've done by mistake, it has removed a lot of the data because it has taken only the unique product IDs. But since I need all of that data, how do I go back? It's quite easy. You see here, a step was added called remove duplicates. I delete it. That's it. So at each point, my data is still available. My base data remains unchanged. It is just an additional transformational step that I've added in. So at this point, I have now remove rows, remove top rows, and I want to remove how many? 5 rows. So I've removed 5 rows. And now I say, this is what I want. Product ID, sale date, sale units. This is what I need. Use first row as headers. This gives me a clean table. This gives me a very clean table that I can now reuse. Again, for anybody who has questions, please feel free to write them out. I will try and tell you. Yes, I have a good question here. What are we really trying to achieve here? I'll request your patience for just a little bit. I will show you exactly what we're going to achieve in a little bit. I have here sheet 1, and I will call this sales. Okay, 1, 2, 3 product ID, sale date is showing me as a date. Sale units is also 1, 2, 3. Sale price 1, 2, 3. Store name is text, and customer rating is 1, 2, 3. Also an integer, so I'm fine with that so far. Now I have a lot of null values. You're right. I have these null values. What should I do with the null values? It depends on what I wish to achieve next. Do I want to consider these as actual values to be used, or do I want to ignore them? Because this is a customer rating, and my objective according to this is to get the average of the rating. I will leave all the null values untouched. I will leave them as nulls. So leaving them as nulls allows me to ignore them in calculations. So at this point, I have sales, I have cost. Let me very quickly add in the last one. Oops, I have by mistake clicked on load. So let me go back here in data, get data from file from Excel workbook and source 3. Source 3, I select this, I transform data. And when I get this, I have a slightly different problem. I do not know what this column 5 and column 6 is. It is not even relevant for my purpose. So I will, holding down the control key, click on these two. Or I have another option. I can say choose columns. Okay, so I can select this by holding down the control key and click on remove columns. I have another option. Let me delete the step and go back. I have the option of selecting, holding down the shift key, I click on product ID and then I click on category manager and I say remove other columns. Anything else will get removed. I will always only maintain these. There's a third way of doing this, which is to say choose columns. And in this, uncheck whatever I do not need. What it actually does is it still does a remove other columns step. I have an I have a question which is very insightful. Is Power BI a higher version of Excel? You are absolutely right. Power BI is a step up from Excel. However, because Power BI was so popular and people said, if Power BI can do all of this, why can't I do some of these things in Excel? Some of these features were brought into into Excel from Power BI. I'm going to name this as manager and I'm done. Close and load. Okay, I have transformed my data. My data is completely set. I have now manager, sales, cost. I don't need sheet 1. I can delete it if I wish and just have manager, sales, and cost. Now, the first question, why not just copy and paste from another file? Why go through all of this to bring this in? The objective of what we are doing today is to automate. I would like to pull in this data automatically. Whenever the data changes in the other file, it should change here automatically. That is what I wish to do. The other option that I need is whenever I have data which I do not wish to delete by mistake, it stays in the original file. Everything here is going to reflect the original file. Let's say I've selected this by mistake and clicked on delete. Oops, my data is gone. So if I click on refresh, what happens? The data comes right back. Even if I make an error and delete this data, the data will be right back. So my original file remains untouched, and the data here is now getting updated depending on what is in the original file. If I delete this value in the original file, it will go from this file as well when I click on refresh. So for now, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to try and achieve. Do you remember the items that we had as a business ask? Which product should be promoted since it has the lowest revenue? Oh, I have a question as to whether versus between Tableau and Power BI, which is going to be in higher demand in the coming year. Honestly, I can't say. Tableau and Power BI are just two of a very wide number of tools. There is Click, there is Google, there are many different players in this field. However, whatever matches people's requirements is what people will go for. Today, this is Excel. And so I can tell you that Excel is growing in itself very fast. So coming back to this point of what we have to do next, Control Z. Yes, Control Z works in Excel as it is. So if I were to do this and go ahead and do a Control Z, it still works. However, Control Z is only to a certain point. What if I have made multiple changes in this by mistake and I wish to go back to the original after having closed it? I can't normally. But since this is a link to another file, it will always maintain whatever is in the other file. Now, for my next step, I have finished a first part of this whole thing. I'm now going to go and do one other piece here. Do you see this manage data model? Now, manage data model is available under data tools. It is also available in Power Pivot if you have Power Pivot enabled. Enabling Power Pivot is not a big deal. If you go into your options and in options, look at your add-ins. Under add-ins, you have COM add-ins. And under COM add-ins, there is Microsoft Power Pivot for Excel. You can just enable that and it will appear. I repeat, File, Options, Add-ins, change this to COM add-ins, click on Go, and make your selection. Okay, so let's say that I have updated data in the original file and I want to see it here. So let's do that. Let's go into the original file, but I cannot go to the original file without closing this. So let me just close this. Okay, I'll show you. I'm going to try and click on source 2, which was my original data file. In this original data file, oh, not this one. I think I needed source 1. Right. In source 1, instead of 3511, it's 3510. Okay. Close. And I have 3511 here. All I need to do is in data, click on refresh all, and it will bring in the latest data from the other file. You do not have anything showing in the COM add-ins. Please check whether you are using which version you're using. Typically, either this has been disabled by the previous your administrator, or you're using an older or a different version. So just check your version. Power Pivot is available since I think 2016. So ideally, it should be available to you if you have that. Now I have another thing which I need to do. Let's say that I have in sales, you see here, I have sales, sales unit, sales price. This was source 2. I go to source 2. And here I add in revenue. Flows. So this is a read only, as you can see. So it is connected to the other file. So I will first close the file I'm working on. Go back to source 2. I have saved it. I'm coming back to my analysis file. Inside my analysis file, I'm going to click on refresh all. So now clicking on refresh all has brought in the additional. So this is a replica of whatever you see over there. All right. I'm going to show you now one other change. So of course, in source 2, I do not want the revenue here. So I will remove it, close this. In source 3, I will add in a column called junk. And let me add in some numbers. Okay. I've added in something. You remember this revenue? This revenue and this cost and manager. If I click on refresh, I'm expecting junk here and I'm expecting revenue to go. Now let's see what happens. I click on refresh all. Revenue now no longer exists. So I do not have revenue in this. And in manager, I still don't have junk. That's because when I have set my rules for this table, I said remove other columns except for 1, 2, 3, 4. So any other columns that get added will not reflect here because my rules have been set up accordingly in the queries and connections. So if a new column is added in the source file, the data type normally is set automatically if it is able to detect it. It is rare that is not able to detect it because you have maybe some text in between. So it says, I'm not sure what to do with it. In which case, you can very simply go in to queries and connections and change the, go into queries and connections and change what you want. So in this case, right now, if I go and click on edit, at any point in time, I can go and change to whatever else I need. All right. So queries and connections, you can go here, click on edit, or right click and edit. So these are all the different options that you have available to you. Now, why do we have sales, cost, and manager? So let's explore the next element of cell. We saw Power Query. Power Query is used only to pull in data. I have a question. In this case, only 4 columns will be selected. So if we insert a column in between, will that column be seen? Or only 4 will be seen at any point in time? Because we have selected the columns that we want. So in Manager, what we have done in queries and connections, in this step, we have said remove columns other than product ID, product name, product manager, category manager. So this is a hard set. Anything else that gets added, wherever it may be placed, it will not appear here. It will be removed. Now, coming back to our next step. This is where the beauty begins. If you click on the Manage Data Model, you will see something completely blank. There is nothing inside this at all. Now, I'm going to do a slight number of changes. Oops, sorry. Now, in Power Pivot, if you are able to access Power Pivot and turn it on, you will see Add to Data Model. If you were to right click on this, then in this case, if you see, you do not have this option for Add to Data Model like that. But in the Power Pivot ribbon, you have an Add to Data Model. The minute I click on that, it opens another add-in called Power Pivot. So Power Query and Power Pivot. Now, Power Pivot gives me within this. I'm sorry, I made a mistake earlier. When I was talking of the add-in, I was referring to Power Pivot, not Power Query. Power Query you will get if you see Get Data. From Get Data, you will automatically be able to access Power Query. You can also access Power Query from queries and connections. For Power Pivot for Excel, you need to use the add-ins. So in this case, this entire worksheet has been added to with the same name manager to Power Pivot. I will save this. I will go back to sales, add to data model. It has added this as well. I go to cost, and voila, I add this to the data model as well. Okay. So do you see these three? Manager, sales, cost. Now I'm going to show you something which is slightly different from what you're generally used to in Excel. This is now what is called data modeling. Do you see this diagram view? Inside Power Pivot for Excel, there's an option called diagram view. We are currently in data view, which shows us individual tables. I'm going to switch to diagram view. This shows me each table with a list of individual elements. Now, what is interlinking everything here is this product ID. I'm going to drag and drop product ID. It says relationship cannot be created because each column contains duplicate values. Select at least one column that contains only unique values. So I cannot do that here. However, manager has a unique list of product IDs. This is where it has created a simple relationship between product ID and in manager, product ID in sales, product ID from manager and cost type. This is what is called a data model. So all three data tables here have exactly the same product ID, which is in common. So this is a unique list of product IDs. This has multiple elements because it is sales, and this has multiple elements because each product ID has more than one cost type. So it repeats. Doing this 1:many, as it is called, this relationship is a 1:many. So this 1:many relationship that I have formed now gives me certain amounts of superpowers. Let's explore these. I am switching back to data view. Nothing is different for us despite those relationships having been established. So let's understand what happens. I will save this. Let me close this for now. Come back here and save this. Now, I have an option here called measures. I'm going to add a new measure. So Power Pivot, measures. Table name is manager. I can put it in table name manager. I can put it anywhere else. It doesn't matter for the moment. I'm going to create something called revenue. Let me put this in sales. Okay. Measures, new measure. Sales, and I will call this revenue. Revenue, and I'm going to say is equal to sales. I'm typing sales. It gives me all the options of sales. There's a sales table. There's a column sales customer rating, product ID, sale date, sale price, and sale units. So I'm going to select sale price. I've used the tab key. I'm using the arrow and tab keys, or I can click. I say is equal to sales units. This is a number. Decimal places, I do not need decimal places. I would like 1,000 separator. So I will say make this a whole number. Okay, so I have revenue, which is a whole number. I'm not interested in the decimals, so that's that. Do you see revenue here? Nowhere. You don't see revenue because it is a measure. Now I will add a second measure. And let's call this total cost is equal to sum of cost. This is my total cost. Okay, I'm keeping it simple at the moment for you, though there are many different options available, many different things that we can do. At this moment, I'm using just a whole number, everything, keep it basic. And I will add one more measure, which is going to be margin. Margin is equal to revenue minus total cost. Okay, so I have here revenue minus total cost. But there's a bit of a problem. My revenue is actually not something which is a total. So maybe I should do, so let me go back, manage measures and make a correction. Margin, let me check if I've made an error. So I will say sum of revenue minus total cost. It doesn't like it. So, all right, I will leave it be for now. So I have total cost, I have revenue, and I have margin. I need one last, which is the rating. Average rating. I can do it here. I have another option though. So you see, I'm saying average and rating. It tells me sales customer rating. Number, decimal, that's fine. None of this has changed across. We can add, so the question is, can we add multiple measures at one shot? Well, measures, there are different ways of adding measures. You see, I can go into manage. Inside manage, in sales, if you see, I have already got here average sales customer rating. I have here revenue, which shows me sale price into sale units. So this is a problem. This is a problem. I need to change this. I need to add a column. So I'm going to add a column here where I'm going to say is equal to sale units into sale price. This is a calculated column, which I will name as revenue. Okay, because there's a revenue which is already existent, it has marked this as revenue 2. And this revenue, I will delete from model. I will rename this as revenue. Oops. And I will now have the way I have total cost. I can say total revenue is equal to sum of revenue. Now with this done, I'm going to change my margin to say total revenue minus total cost. And it has given me the correct numbers. So this allows me to check it. I have tested it. And now with my data model ready, I have a few options. I can go ahead and say that I want to create directly from here, insert pivot table from data model. New worksheet. Okay. This shows me all of my options together. Do you remember our product ID, manager, etc.? Right here, by expanding manager, I pull in product manager. And against this, from sales, I will pull in margin. This shows me that I have data and I have some blanks. I have some where data is missing. But straight away, I can see who has got what margin. Let me look at my data to understand what those blanks are. If you're using WPS, WPS does not have the get data feature. This is exclusively in Microsoft Excel. So I have here by margin. So let me see. I have everything here under sales. So everything has been allocated. I need to confirm that I have the correct list. Do I have something missing? I will use a unique feature to get the product IDs. So I have 52, I have 651, 159, 842, 6424, and 1775. All are there, so I have missed nothing. Okay, so I have in this, I am seeing product margin. So I have Amitabh, Nagarjuna, Rajnikant. Who is missing? I have all three. But I seem to have some additional information of a blank. This blank needs to be resolved, which of course we will do. But for now, I will very quickly set up other pieces. So let's see, bank. Why do I have a blank? Let's look at this is to do with the basic data itself. Okay, so I have product IDs. There's no difference in the product IDs. So therefore, with these product IDs, I have product managers. Then why do I not have only those three? What is missing? Something is missing. Ah, no, nothing is missing. I have all three. Okay, so let's find out what that is. Margin blank tells me nothing. This does not help me. So double clicking on it should normally give me the list, but it is providing me nothing. So let me go back into my data model. Inside the data model, I have revenue, which is already set. Okay, not a problem. So revenue, the way Power Pivot handles it will automatically get filled for all of the data. Okay, so for all of the data, you can see that revenue has got created. So that's fine. Now I have total revenue, which is sum of revenue. I have total cost, which is, give me a moment. Sales revenue. So cost, total revenue minus cost, save, close. Okay, so it has still not resolved my blank. My blank is still sitting here. I'm not sure why. Okay, so I have the product manager, I have the cost, and I have my margin. Table external data has got created. All right. So, well, I will sort out the blank issue later. For now, since I wish to understand who has my business ask was which product manager is bringing the highest margin. This shows me that the highest margin is from Rajnikant. So this is my first problem solved. I have a second problem. So I will create now one more. So let me copy this. In this, I want to understand which product should be promoted since it has the lowest revenue. So I will take product. I will take the product name. I do not need the product manager. And instead of using margin, I will look at total revenue. So this shows me the total revenue for each product. And depending on how I want to see this, tennis shoes are fine. Tennis balls are the ones that need to be promoted. So Rajnikant is the superhero here and tennis balls are the villain here. They both need to be addressed here. Which store needs improvement according to customers? I'm going to take one more copy right here. And I'm going to see, let me remove some columns. So rows. So I have here store. So my store is within sales. I do not need that. And I need the average rating and not the total. So again, the one which needs effort here is Kanpur. So according to customers, the store that needs improvement is Kanpur. Now, why there was an initial question here as to why go through all of this exercise? Why can't we just do it the old-fashioned way? For two reasons. Calculating this margin across data, across tables, is a bit more complicated. You can use lookups. You can try and do it by using independent pivots and then calculating from that, which is not a smooth way. There's one more thing in this. If the data changes there, you have to go around and play, because if the number of players increase, if the number of products increase, the number of stores changes, everything has to be done a little bit. Here, it's fully automated. The second thing is just the word I used just now, automation. Complete automation becomes possible because now, if my base data has changed, all of this can get updated automatically without me needing to do anything other than click on a refresh. So I have something called category manager. There is no business ask on the category manager. Do we have cost for all units? Yes, we do have cost for all units. I will check those bits. Now I have a category manager additionally here available. If I wish to see this data, which today I don't have an ask for it, but there is no harm done. I can take this data and I change here from the manager, I select the category manager instead of the product manager. So this now gives me the margin based on the category manager. Of course, I still have to figure out why the blank, but then, well, that's a second part of the problem. The first part is for me to show you what you can do with this data, how you can arrive at a fully automated solution to your problems. I'm going to do one last thing. You see this data here. I'm going to close this file. I'm going to come back and change my source. Let's take my source 3. And by the way, now it is no longer Amitabh, it is just for tennis rackets. Coming back to my analysis, without needing to change anything anywhere. That's interesting. What exactly happened? Right. So now I have my updated data available because of that one change. Similarly, if I were to delete some of this data, all of these numbers would change again. Now, obviously, yes, if most of you are willing to try out with your own data, you can do this. Remember that you need to ensure a certain number of things. Your sales, each table here, the product ID in at least one should be unique. If you're using a completely unique one, then you will be able to get that relationship. To see that relationship, we look at the data model. You look at the data model, you say manage, and inside this, go to the diagram view. If you're not able to get a one is to many, it means that there are duplicates. How will you manage that? That is managed then in Power Query. We are nearly on top of the hour. Let me give you just a quick view of data, queries and connections, manager, edit. And in this, you have product ID. I want to ensure that there is only one product ID. This is where I can say remove duplicates. This will give me an additional step here, which I can remove at any point, and all duplicates will be removed. Each time I close and load, it will update all of the steps. It will provide the new data available to me. So except for this little hiccup of the blank, which of course we can always figure out, the main thing is that we now know how we can use calculations across tables because we have created a data model out of these tables. Thank you all for attending today's session. And yes, as and when we can come up with more subjects and topics to cover for the next set of webinars, we will keep you all posted. Keep following SkillUpRight, and you will see the newer options available to you. Thank you all once again.